Buenas tardes, LEC community. I am Delia, your high impact practice director for the LEC. Welcome to our Ask an Educator series, where we amplify, celebrate, spotlight, and showcase Latinx educators' leadership journey and genius. Thank you for tuning in live with us today, or for a hashtag replay later on. Please engage with us in the comments and show some love or ask some questions for Mirta Valdes. She is an educator out of Maryland, but I'm going to have her introduce herself a little more. Mirta, ¿cómo estás? How are you?
Hola Delia, ¿cómo estás? Gracias por tenerme. Thanks for having me here. I am from the Eastern Shore of Maryland. I teach in Caroline County, also known as one of the Green Counties. So if you're familiar with the Chesapeake Bay, you want to look at that area where I'm at. That's where I teach. The last 20 years out of my 26 years have been at North Carolina High School, rural school in Maryland's Eastern Shore. I'm originally from Puerto Rico, of Padres Cubanos, and I'm actually coming to you from Miami. Wow. I came to see my dad, and I'm here at my brother's and my sister-in-law's place in Miami, Old Doral. Así que coming to you from Florida this week.
You just said a whole bunch of interesting things. So
it's a melting pot, isn't it?
Wow. Like you teach in Maryland, but born and raised in Puerto Rico of Cuban
parents and hermanos. Wow. I'm actually out of the 14 cousins, and I had today lunch with my cousin Mirta. My mother was Mirta, my cousin was Mirta, and I was Mirta. You know, very, very rare in Latino families. So we carry the names, right, Delia? We just keep carrying the names on and on. And I was the youngest of 14 cousins. So everyone in my family was Cuban, but for me. My parents came and went to Johnson Freedom Flights with my brother and my grandparent and my grandmother. And actually talking to my cousin Mirta, I was asking her some questions because she was 15 when she left Cuba. So she had more fresh memories, you know, versus my brother who was 4. She says they actually left through Spain, and she was telling about her being a teenager in Spain for her few years. So it's funny because at home, my parents lived 34 years in Puerto Rico, so very Puerto Ricanos. Mm-hmm. But it's the school there would call me La Cubanita, but my friends, my cousins would call me La Boricua, you know, because depends where I was.
That is so true. I could totally relate to that, Mirta. Growing up in Chicago, it's very common to have a Mexican and Puerto Rican mix, which is what I am. My father's from Michoacan. My mother's from Naguabo or Juncos, Puerto Rico. Mm-hmm. And so, but visiting in Mexico, I also have a cousin who's half Mexican, half Cuban. And so sometimes we would connect and I would ask her like, hey, do they call you the Cuban? And like, yeah, they call me the Puerto Rican, but we're in Mexico.
Right. Depends where you are. It
depends. And when I go to Puerto Rico, they say your Spanish sounds so Mexican.
Right.
I was like, wow. And so that concept of what Esmeralda Santiago says, I've always related to, ni de aquí, ni de allá.
Yeah.
I know that Gloria Ansaldúa makes some references about being like at the in-between. It's like, oh, gosh, thank you for writing.
You're in between all these worlds. But I have to tell you, the cooking in my house was always the best because my mother would, she would influx all those things into the cooking. So it didn't matter where it was from. We would have the best Puerto Rican or Cuban recipes in the house. So I grew up eating the best. Y las abuelitas were always home to welcome you from school. It was really those, because we all lived in the same house, those were things that I definitely cherish very much. Also, started teaching as my second career, which as we know today, what's going on with education, so many people are going to be needed to come into the teaching world. And this is, for me, teaching was a second career. It was a second calling. At first, it was because I spoke Spanish and they needed someone to speak Spanish. But then clearly it became a passion for me to be a teacher. I've taught everything from elementary to middle to high school, and definitely I feel like public high school is where my heart is. I just believe
Mhm.
that um, that's where I need to be. Um, and the last 2 years taught us so much as educators that it just so go beyond of what you're teaching every day or your subject matter. Um, so I think between building relationships and um, thinking that every student that comes into our classroom now has a story just like we do. And for so many of
Yes.
them, our stories are very much sort of can even be related. We can relate to their stories. Maybe it was our stories or the stories of our parents or the stories of
Yep.
his abuelitos. And so that has been a very fulfillment career for me. And I'm, really excited for the school year to start, which I know sometimes it sounds
When do
crazy, but
you
I am.
when do you start in Maryland?
So we started. Our county reports August 24th, and the kids will be there around the 29th or the 30th. So we will have them around the corner pretty soon. So I think it'll be an
Yes.
exciting year and exciting courses I'll be teaching this year too, that I didn't teach before, and some that I've always had. And I think that we want to enter every day like it's a new day, be positive, because that's how we reflect this on them is how they're going to reflect this to themselves and for us too. So I think I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that background. And already in this, first 6 minutes or so, I've already connected with you on so many things. I do have to share when you mentioned the mixture of food. I'm a foodie. We're foodies at my house. My mother will make arroz con gandules,
Ay, qué rico,
and then we'll have like fajitas with that,
qué rico, sí.
or like maduros with frijoles de la olla. Like
Mi cuñada, my sister-in-law made for dinner her mom's recipe 2 days ago. There was arroz relleno, que es bien
Mhm.
puertorriqueño. Have you ever had arroz relleno?
I haven't.
So rice, chicken shredded, rice. It's almost like a lasaña de arroz y
Oh
pollo.
wow.
Y le pones un poquito de queso para que se junte y lo pones al horno. You put it in the oven, and I had not had
Ooh,
that since I used to
never.
go to her mom's for dinner because she lived in the same street I had. Of course, she lived in the same street that I did growing up. My sister-in-law has been married to my brother for 35 years. So we all grew up together and then, neighborhood kids, and just to taste, I said, oh, it tastes just like your mom's arroz relleno because it was her recipe.
Interesting. It
Yes.
reminds me of pastelón, except
Ay,
with
qué
the
rico.
maduros.
Sí, pastelón is my favorite dish in the world.
Yes, it is mine
This
too.
is my favorite dish.
It's a lot of work because you gotta like fry them and then bake them and
For
the
us, it's finding the
layers.
maduros in Maryland. It's the hard part. Finding the maduros is the
Um,
problem. Yeah. But
well,
it's definitely my favorite.
we buy them green and then we just let them sit around for a while.
So good.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
And if you're out there listening and you've never had pastelón, you should look it up and
oh, it's
give it a
amazing
shot.
for sure. Well, you've talked a little bit about your upbringing and your journey a little bit. I know you mentioned that this was teaching is your second career. Share a little bit more about your leadership story. So, like, you started in another career and then you started to go into a classroom, but definitely include things that are relevant to credit for where you are today.
So I started teaching 26 years ago. I was part-time. Somebody that speak Spanish. I then went to the high school and then made my way to North Carolina High School. And I think taught Spanish. The first thing that I did was bring the AP Spanish program into the school. I just believed that we needed a stronger courses and that those be available to all students, not just for some students. I saw an increase of our heritage speakers in the school and to have courses that they could relate at that time. We weren't thinking about heritage courses. Um, I think that for me, they're really I think the pivot and everything that happened was I found a voice during the pandemic, during COVID. I think for a lot of people, they found something. For me, was I don't know if it was the time or the stories that I was hearing or reading. I had been reached out at first. I had brought some things to the school before. I had gone to a meeting and heard about the Steel by Literacy and was surprised that we didn't offer that. And my county was very supportive when we presented it, and now it's offered. And I thought, it is our heritage speakers who are going to benefit from the Steel by Literacy in Maryland for the most part. And especially students who I'm a very big supporter of college and career readiness. I think career readiness is really important because not everyone may be going into a four-year university or community college, but there's some wonderful careers that we could be offering. And we have a technical school right next to my school. So they actually come back and forth from courses. And I think that that is something that we should prepare our students for if that is their choosing. And so the Seal by Literacy goes with that career readiness. So we did that. We have that in place. After that, I started thinking about the heritage speaker course when the numbers started to be, really high. And you know how it is. You've taught, people in classrooms where you have now 5, 6, 7, 8 kids who are heritage speakers, and they're at different levels. You may be reading, you may be writing, but you may be speaking in English in school and Spanish at home, but we're all at different levels. And Spanish 1 or 2, it's not the right place for those students.
Yes.
And that definitely was a little bit, but I've had many supervisors. There's been some changes, all really into supporting, but we finally got it in place. We're still working with what is the right curriculum for it. But this year, I'm going to do both sides, Spanish heritage speakers 1 and 2. So I'm looking forward, and I want to say that Delia has helped me a lot with this too, with guiding me or the things that I could be using. I reached out to her. We met at a National Board Academy presentation, and she was great. And it's nice. I think that's also that came out of the pandemic, was that everyone was helping each other from different parts of the country and even parts of the world. Support system. During that time, I had been asked to be part of an AP advocate for College Board for Maryland. It's a team of 3 of us from different parts. And I had been part of advocacy for a while, but really in a smaller scale. But this time we wanted to pass a bill. Delegate Solomon of Prince George's County, who had been an educator before, he was a lawyer and a politician. He's a lawyer politician now, but he had I think he worked for Teach America, I think. We know that the policy for AP in higher learning education, it's not fair. It's unjust. You can't say that a 3 is a passing grade, and then some of our universities in Maryland were not given credit for a 3 or a 4. They were only accepting 5s. What happens to our students from my school, who a great deal of them go to our community college, which is a great community college. It's also cost effective. They're getting credit for those 3s. Then 2 years later, they're going to go to a 4-year university. Oh, we cannot give you credit for those. It is not only a problem for them, also it's a problem for their parents' pocket and whoever's paying for that, if they're paying for them themselves. A huge hit financially for them. So we were asked to speak to the House. It started in October of 2020. It was March of 2020, but then it got shut down for COVID. So it was reintroduced as 1098 bill, House Bill 1098 in October. It didn't pass. Made some changes. The changes were fair, were, for example, if you're studying pre-med, you may have to take biology in college versus just getting the credit. But I would like to say that I spoke in all the hearings, including the Senate hearing. And in April of 2022, we were there when it was signed into law by Governor Hogan. We stood behind him as he signed it. We even got a commemorative pen. And I think that was a huge, huge and important step for all of our students in Maryland. And also, it's now spilling onto other states.
Yes.
Yes. So that's the advocacy. And now I'm in committees with them. I have been to the advocacy, AP advocacy sort of meeting that we had in DC this summer. And I now feel like I need to advocate not just for that, but also for different things in my own school or in my own area as well. Um,
Mhm,
that was the voice that I feel I found during the pandemic, that I maybe was too scared before, um,
mhm,
or maybe I didn't think it was right, or maybe I shouldn't have said. And I think that's when some of us need to think, what is her passion that is involved to teaching, and move beyond the classroom and still be connected. And that's
mm.
for me where I'm standing right now.
I think this is amazing, Mirta. This is music to my ear. I mean, I identify as a heritage speaker. You and I have talked about this.
Hmm.
Born and raised in Chicago. I lived in Mexico for a year in first grade. So I learned those fundamentals of reading and writing skills, right? And coming back to or returning to Chicago, there weren't programs in place as robust as what's being offered in some districts across the nation today, right? Like I wasn't a bilingual program, but I still suffered and I experienced a lot of language trauma there, just overcorrection, or, they tried the half a day English, half a day Spanish. But when it was time to speak in English, I was shy. I was scared. I cried because I didn't know how to ask simple questions like, can I go to the bathroom? Literally. And now I feel like there has been so much progress around um, language learning or language acquisition, at the high school level, especially today. And
Yes.
there's people like, is it Dr. Jose Medina, who talks about translanguaging? I want to say it's Jose Medina. And then, of course, Guadalupe Valdez has done a lot of extensive studies. And because of people like you, right? So, like, you sit on these committees, you found your voice, you said it, you've advocated, and in a state where a lot of these opportunities were not
Mhm.
there for our people. Um, that's something to be celebrated, something to be really proud of, because know that the impact is going to be great moving forward. And it's not
And
just 1 year, one class. It's the state of
it is
Maryland.
also going to help the whole state. And we have so many heritage speakers families in the state of
Yes.
Maryland. And when you look at other counties, just not just ours, where this is going to impact, and more students who either are going to follow a career, they're going to attend community college, maybe transfer later. And I also think for I had a parent who in my own school who I asked her if she could, you know, write something that I could say on our behalf of a parent. And she
Hmm.
said, how do you tell your daughter that College Board says they pass, but then the universities in her state are not finding that is a just, or that is a good score when it's a passing just score for her. And she was a heritage speaker. And also the financial impact on families that it has.
Yes.
The other thing that happened during the pandemic, the first time that the bill didn't pass, Governor Hogan, who's supportive of education in Maryland, um, bipartisan, just talking about him,
Hmm.
he gave $2.1 million for any kind of AP programs, or up to AP programs, so they could be used for testing or whatever. So that really helped a lot, because the other issue for me is a working family, 3 AP classes, or 2 kids and taking 2 tests. Those tests are expensive. I mean, that's a
Yes. Yes, they
$500
are.
day for them. And so
Hmm.
for me, it's we have to find ways to eliminate this cost or reduce this cost as much as we can.
Absolutely.
Um, Also, I want to make sure that in our heritage class, and you can tell me because you have so much more experience than me in this, but I want that class to look like it's a class. It can't be the same every year, because we might have different students in there.
Mm.
The skeleton might be the
Yes.
same, but I'm envisioning this. If my kids are going to be from Honduras and Guatemala and Mexico, let's get them to learn about, because the things that they were missing that maybe they didn't know from their parents and their grandparents, ancestors' homeland. And
Hmm.
just so much part of the course. They're part of creating what we're doing. That they buy into this. This is their course. Their story is important. Their voice is going to be important in my class.
Absolutely.
Even if it's Heritage Speakers, Spanish 3, AP, everybody's voice is important.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I know you were kind of cutting in and out a little bit, but I got the gist of it. Like basically every year your class looks different, right? The student body looks different, and you want to cater.
The student body's different. I think the subject's going to be different. What's going on in our world is different. A global citizenship, we have to build it, but things are changing. Social justice is changing. We have to teach them social justice as our as our communities are changing. Because part of being a teacher is to have students who have a conscious, that they have a social justice conscious, that they have a cultural awareness, that they have a global awareness of what's going on in our world, and in their country.
Yes.
And I think that, and I want them to know what goes on in their own land as well, where they came from. Like you and I, we know about Puerto Rico, we know about Mexico, we know about Cuba. I want them to know about that as well.
Yes, absolutely. And giving them opportunities to share with others their own lived experience and their perspective on it. One of my favorite things to do in my Spanish, when I taught class, regular Spanish as well as Heritage Spanish, was my lived experience perspective is El Rincón de Dolores de Michoacán, and the little bit that I know where my mother is from in Puerto Rico. So having students share their perspective, because Mexico is a large country and there's northern culture, there's southern life, there's coastal life. Same thing in Puerto Rico. There's a west side of the island, a north side of there's campo, there's ciudad, right? And so having them share, especially those cultural elements, right? It's going to be very different. You just mentioned arroz.
I think also
Relleno, arroz relleno. Like I've never heard of that. Yes.
So few minority teachers, it's also important to educate with. So the when we have students able to connect with those students, which is the case. We
we're having some connection issues again. Mirta, can you hear me? Hello.
Want me to move? Yes, I can hear you well.
Okay, so you're coming in and out and you're pixelized again. I'm not sure if you want to call your brother to help you again. He came for the rescue. She's getting some help. We'll be back. Stay tuned as we continue to learn about Mirta's journey. Oh, there she is. There she is. She's reconnecting. Stay tuned. I do see you. Let's see how it's going.
¿Me oyes?
Yes, I do hear you. I hear
Gracias.
you. It's still kind of pixelized.
There's no internet in the area, so we're using a hotspot.
Oh, gotcha, gotcha. Okay, well, we'll continue
Okay.
on. Um,
Okay.
I want you
Sorry about
to
that.
talk. No, it's all good. It's all good. It happens, right? um, let's see. What are some of the hurdles in your career that made has made following your dreams a little more difficult? I know you shared a little bit about the AP program and advocating in that space, but what are some other hurdles that you want to illuminate or talk about that have made following your dreams a little more difficult?
I think sometimes has been hard when I was maybe one of the few people that were um, different in my school.
Hmm.
Early on, that was very difficult. There was just not this great population. My English has never been perfect. It wasn't, and I think that was always a challenge for me at first. And I think that I had to try to see beyond that. The other thing is, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and I wanted everything to be just so. And if something didn't work in a lesson, I would be so upset. And I've learned, I don't know if it's age or if it's positive words from other people, but I've learned that the next day it's going to be okay. Try it again.
Mm,
I learned that the students can be incredibly forgiving,
yes.
and that you have the next day to try it and to try it, and if not, switch it around. I've also really have learned to go visit other teachers who are teaching, even if from another subject area. I have no
Mm,
issues. I like to visit other classrooms. I feel like you can learn so much from others by just seeing how they are doing things, and not to feel that, oh, because I've been done this for 26 years, I don't need to learn anything new. And the other side, I think that part of being part of a community, it's to share from others,
mhm,
and everybody's so giving. My school people are
mm,
very giving, and I think that has been wonderful. um, and I also reach out to teachers from that I know from other parts of the country, from AP grading, or that I know in Puerto Rico, friends. Hey, how you do this? How do you do this? I think that sometimes as teachers, we feel a little bit embarrassed to kind of do that. We feel like, we're here, we can't really reach out. And so I want to make sure that this year I don't feel like that. Like, I go out and ask people. I think that since and other people see me doing that, I think when people in your own department see you doing that in your own community, in your hallway, I think it just builds an understanding that we're there to learn from each other. We can gain so much. And I've been in the school for so long. It's really a family. Um, it's a family that sometimes is, just like families. You got
yep.
families aren't perfect, but we all come from different backgrounds and different beliefs, and we all have
Hmm.
to live with each other. But I think at the end, um, North Carolina High School for me has been home, and has been a great place and supportive place. And sometimes I'll throw ideas, um, and sometimes they stick and sometimes they don't. But in the last few years, I would say that any idea I brought up to anyone, um, I I think I've been very, very much supported. And I think that maybe as teachers, sometimes we just have to find the right time to ask, but not to be afraid, because we might
Hmm.
ask five different people, and maybe the fourth one will say, I think that's a great idea, try it or do it. The
Hmm.
first time I wanted to do something at advocating, I was told I couldn't go. It was a whole different group of people. And then I did. And so I was very supported by it the second time around. And I think that that's something we as teachers sometimes we feel shut down and we don't want to go forward. And I felt like that for a while.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
Advice that I also want to give people: just go to another classroom. Don't feel defeated. The next day is going to be
Hmm.
okay. And I'm going to have to remind that to myself as I walk into that school in August as well.
Yes. No, Mirta, what I really like about how you answered this question about the hurdles is that you've reflected internally and identified that you were that you had your own barriers, like your limited beliefs, perhaps maybe um, um, didn't have the courage, right, to ask or speak up. And then you found, right, agency, you found your voice. You asked others, like,
Mhm.
can I come in and observe your class? That takes courage. That takes, removing yourself. So thank you for leaning into authenticity and vulnerability at the same time to talk
And
about
it's
that.
so hard to, and it's so hard sometimes, I would say that I'm a Latina hard-headed. It's so hard sometimes for me to do that. But
Mm,
I think that it's important to do that. It's
it is.
also important to see it's a reality check. It's important to see, it's important to ask for help. It's important um, to know that we're humans. Some
Right.
days it's not going to be the greatest lesson in the world,
Right.
but
And you
thank God you're
admitting.
there.
Right. And admitting, like, I struggle with perfectionism, right? And I identifying that so that you are aware of it. Once you identify this and there's awareness, you begin to see it, right? And then you address it. So every time that perfectionism is kicking in, I'm sure Mirta does some self-talking, like, okay, it doesn't have to be perfect, right? Like, or whatever your move is. Um, with that, what keeps you going?
I think what keeps me going is knowing that, we say the teachers, change lives. It keeps me going that at the end of that school year, people are moving forward. When I see those students coming back into taking the class, another level of the class, when I see an AP
Mhm.
class where everyone, it's 100% taking the test, and because they want, I just want to tell them they have to, but they do. When I
Mhm.
see that they're telling me they're going to minor in Spanish in college, when I get an invitation to their graduation party, later to their wedding, to their baby shower, now I know that this
Yes.
have gone so far beyond just
Yes.
my class. It's gone just far
Mhm.
beyond, and that gets me going. And I also, what gets me going is that I believe that our language and our culture should be celebrated, and it's an important
Yeah.
part of this country that we live in. And everyone should have a voice, and our students who come from places like I did, like you did, who our ancestors did, deserve to have that as part of their education.
Mhm. Absolutely. Agreed. Agreed. Thank you for sharing that. Um, you know, we've often talk about this as far as like Latinx educators. They're the fastest growing demographic in education in this country. But unfortunately, they are also some of the quickest to leave, with 3 years being the average, compared to the national average of 5 years. Why do you think this is? And what advice would you give to Latinx educators listening now that might be struggling?
I couldn't hear the question. I'm having trouble with the audio. Did you say what advice going to give those who want to leave, or what can we do to keep them to stay?
Yeah, well,
It's a national problem.
however you want to answer it. Yeah. Hmm.
I mean, I think that we have to build stronger mentoring programs within our school and our counties, um, where we are mentoring someone, that we're really building these relationships that go beyond the 7 to 3 p.m. And bring them into our families, that we do, that we're able to connect with them, that we can show them what it's like later on, um, because we cannot continue to lose teachers in their first 3 years. Um, it's a great career. It's demanding. There's a lot, but it's rewarding. And at the end, there's some great minds out there. The other thing is, I am a strong believer in also, let's protect those who have stuck around for a long time,
Hmm.
um, because it seems like sometimes we put so much effort and so much uh, just interest and just hiring new teachers, and the teachers who've been there past 20 years, 15, 20, who are really going to be the long-term teachers who are going to stay. I feel like as a whole, there's just not much importance or support, or they're not being celebrated for being there that long. So I think that's a balance. And I think that we probably have to reach out to people who are going to come as their second career. There's so much wealth out there, people. I know that every time
Yes.
we've had somebody in our school who had come from, private sector, who maybe was a chemist before, an engineer before, it has been just great. So I think the schools have to work. There has to be some sort of a working, even memory, a shadowing program or mentoring program for our teachers in all those levels, and then celebrating those who have stayed in a career, and will end their career there. And even those can also become, mentors to new teachers who are starting over, those who are retiring.
Absolutely. No, I agree, and I love your answer, especially the one about mentoring. That's a huge interest of mine. And that's because I've had several mentors. I mean, you get assigned a mentor when you become a new teacher, but that person was not my only mentor. I had others all around me mentoring me. I was picking a lot of brains, like what you mentioned, like visiting other classrooms. Like I asked friends that were in the building, like, hey, come and observe me, give me feedback, be hungry, right?
Yep.
For I don't know if the word is improvement or growth, right? Like, but no, thanks. I really enjoyed listening to your advice. So,
And,
folks that were
and we want to
listening,
grow. We teachers have been there for a long time. We want to grow. We don't want to get stuck in the same. I
no.
want to grow. Year 26, I want to grow. I don't want to be stuck in the same. I was thinking, also this summer, my favorite teacher I've ever had in school was Señora Valles. She taught Estudios Sociales, or
Mm-hmm.
Historia. She taught me in all 4 years of high school. I went to a small
Oh,
school in Puerto Rico, so you would have same teacher. She passed away this summer, and at the full life of I think she was in her mid-90s. And everyone, my sister-in-law had her, I had her. We all just reminiscing about her. And she would definitely impacted my life. Just even before I thought I was going to be a teacher, I thought she was just her, just her
mm-hmm.
love for history, her love for teaching, her love for students. And I hope that you always think about as an educator, someone who impacted you in your life, and you have a chance to always thank them, because what I'm sorry about after Hurricane Maria, I forgot to ever send her a note, and I have, sad that I didn't do that. So
Mm.
that's also, I think that would be nice to tell those, and I haven't lived in Puerto Rico for so long, but she was just great. And I know we all have a Mrs. Bias that we loved
Yes.
ourselves growing up. And it's a good thing to remember, and to reach out to those teachers as well.
Yes. No, definitely keep in touch. I keep in touch with some of my teachers. I do want to elevate a comment here. We have Dr. Clark agreeing. He just said absolutely. So he agreed with something. Sorry, that was about five
Thank you,
minutes
Dr.
ago.
Clark. Yes.
And then what a great statement. Thank you, Dr. Clark, for engaging and
Thank you,
connecting with
Dr.
us
Clark.
today. Yes. No, Mirta, your words are definitely powerful. If you had one thing that you wanted, speaking about students, right, keeping in touch, if you had one thing that you wanted all your students that you've encountered over the years to walk away from your class, what would that be?
I mean, I would want them to know that yes, they can, sí pueden. Okay, yes, they can, sí pueden. And whatever they want to do in life, that there's going to be sometimes, some pebbles on the road, some more obstacles, and to do what their heart tells them it's what they want to do. I think
Mm-hmm.
sometimes um, people go in careers that it's not their calling because, financial reasons, or friends or family. Do what you love and see the world, travel, learn, meet other people, learn other cultures. Um, Even if you travel from 5 minutes away from your house, 10 minutes to
Mm-hmm.
1 hour, to 1,000 miles, there's so much you can see. And I tell my kids 3 things all the time in their graduation cards when I write a number one: return to shopping cart. Guacamole is the
Mm.
crowd pleasing. And give up your seat in public transportation if somebody needs it. So those are three things I'm going to close with. So they, and if they heard me, they would know. And they promised me they would do it.
Oh, that's beautiful. You know, the one about giving up your seat. So Chicago public transportation's big, right? Huge. My grandmother, whose also name is Delia, on my Puerto Rican side,
Delia,
she,
yes.
yes, I know you mentioned Mirta, right? So my
Right, yeah.
abuela, she had no shame in telling a young person to get up for her. She'll say, "I'm a senior
Yeah.
citizen," you know?
Yeah.
That's
And they
awesome.
should
So
have.
thanks.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, you made me laugh for that one. That was great. Well, Mirta, thank you so much for your time and your service and your collaboration alongside the school and the community that you advocate strongly for. Definitely, they're very lucky to have you. Um, is there anything else you want to share with folks that are tuning in?
I want to say that first I want to thank Delia and for since we met, I feel like we know each other. Delia, she locked her door because one day I'm just going to show up at her front door just like I'm here visiting. I want to thank her for the opportunity to just you know give us a voice for us educators all around the country, across the country, that are Latinos and Latinas, and to give our, to show us stories, and also a little bit of where we come from, a little bit of where Caroline County is for me, and where North Carolina High School is for me, and for supporting us as teachers. Sometimes in the last few years, maybe we have felt unsupported or lonely at times. Everybody remembers teaching to the dark Zoom screens with the "hello, are you there?" And so
Yep.
this has been, but the one positive thing that has come from that as well, many positive things, but one thing has been just to having this programs and these opportunities where we are connecting, that I
Yes.
never dreamed before that I would do this. I'm a talker, but I'm usually pretty shy. So I
Mhm.
feel like if you're out there, advocate for something you love, go to your principal's office, get out of your shelf, do it on your own. Um, I think that there's so many programs, there's so many people, there's so many students that need you. And you
Mhm.
could be the voice, and they will learn to speak up. My students were so excited for that bill. They knew the day I was going, they knew when it didn't pass, when it was going to pass. And, maybe I inspire someone to someday, change the law in their state, or to be, to become, go into politics. I don't know what I change. It will be
Mhm.
years from now to know, but
Mhm.
just do it, because it worked. And I think it was really nice that it was teachers who are
Mhm.
in the battleground who went in for this.
Yes. No, absolutely. Oh, Mirta, thank you so much for sharing your genius, your advice to listeners, and thank you for, advocating for students and always
Gracias,
putting students
gracias.
first. Yes, yes. LEC community, thank you for tuning in. You've heard from Mirta Bradney, right?
Bradner, yes.
Bradner, sorry. Okay, so Mirta Valdes-Bradner out of Maryland. Thank you for tuning in. Tune in with us next week for another series of Ask an Educator. All right. Have a good night, everybody. Hasta luego.
Ciao.